Hello friends, this is Cara-Renee with B.Reborn Art and Healing. Today I'm creating or working on my Sunday's Art of Truth. It's going to be called Awakening, and you can read about the inspiration behind this piece over on my blog at B.Rebornart.com. I'll leave a link in the description box under the video. I'm going to be doing some collaging using some of my digital papers that I've purchased for my junk journaling and art journaling. So I'm going to be using some of these printables. This is called Paris Rose. And if you've been following me for any length of time, you know that that is meaningful to me. So I'm really looking forward to using this. I'm using a lot of Sean Petit stencils. I'm going to be using Spring Words. I'm going to be using the Awakening there. I'll be using this silhouette of this girl. And I'll be using the large door stencil. I'll be using Numbers Jumbled probably. I might use this butterfly stencil. I may be using some of the script on here, probably Beauty or Journey. Not sure. May use this postal vintage postage. Not sure. Just pulling everything out. And then these are just some stencils to create some background texture to the piece. And then this, I was thinking about using this lamppost, but that will make sense as I move through this. So just in an effort to save time, I will be doing my collaging off screen so that you don't have to sit through that. It's a pretty long process. I need to tear all my papers and do all that. So I might leave the camera on and just speed it up. We'll see how it goes. So let's get going. I'm going to go ahead and set that aside. okay. This is nice and dry. The collaging is all finished. And as it is with many mixed media projects, a lot of the background does get lost in the process. But I know that going into creating a piece like this, and I'm okay with it because I know the story that is housed in the background and in all of these papers. As I mentioned before, Paris is a real love in my heart, has a special place, so I wanted that to be part of my background. So I am going to go ahead and move on to the next step, just sharing some of the products that I'll be using. I do add to this and I do take some things away. I don't usually do a voiceover these days, and so this has been a real struggle. I have to tell you, very time consuming, but hopefully it will be cohesive and it will make sense as we move through this with the voiceover. So just pushing back those papers with a little bit of gesso, just to kind of mute them out a little bit. They're a little bit bold. And I often want to be able to retain some of the lightness in the background. I rarely accomplish that. And this is no different. I did retain some in the far left-hand side, as you'll be able to see in the still photos at the end. So here I'm using the green gold golden fluid acrylic and brayering that on as well, because I really like that light and sunny green feel of this color. So I decided to go ahead and use that as it was part of the background papers. So again, I did dry this and I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next step. Going to do some background stamping with some of the stencils, not stamping, stenciling with some of the Sean Petit stencils that I had showed at the beginning of the video. This is dictionary words, I believe, and I'm using my Ranger Black Archival ink and my makeup sponge to just go ahead and create some background interest. Some of this does end up showing in the final piece, which is quite lovely. The black really helps balance out the piece when there's a lot of other color and busyness going on. So this was definitely a nice move. I do also tend to do things in threes. So as you saw me do there, I went ahead and applied that script in 3 different places. I'm using the Vintage Postage 2 here, just creating, again, a little bit more interest in the background. Some of this gets covered up entirely by my door on the right side, but it is okay. It's a part of the process, and often when you're creating mixed media, things change as you move along. So it doesn't hurt to go ahead and just put everything kind of intuitively where you'd like them to be, and if it gets covered up, it gets covered up. It's not really a big deal. And then this is the numbers jumbled stencil, also from Sean Petit. All of the stencils today are from her shop at seanpetit.com. Going to go ahead and use also her butterflies. This is a butterfly stencil with masks. So I'm just creating those because butterflies also have a very special meaning for me in my healing journey. So I want to incorporate those also in this awakening piece. And you'll be able to read about the inspiration behind this project over on my blog, again, at B.Rebornart.com. Every Sunday, I do a Sunday's Art of Truth, which is a blog, inspirational writing, along with a piece of art. So you can check that out. This is the large door stencil, again, from Sean Petit. I'm going to use my Liquitex flexible modeling paste to create that texture in the background in that door. Right there, I was just trying to... was evaluating how I could protect that area, and then I remembered there's a mask for the center of that door because I didn't want any of that texture paste to get in the door area. So, and now I'm just going to go ahead and apply my modeling paste here. And this is where I was talking about where you do cover up things that you didn't, necessarily plan on covering up, or it's just kind of part of the process, in my opinion. It's no harm, no foul. So just finishing up there, I am going to go back and rough it up a little bit just to kind of make it look uneven and kind of scrapey. And then we'll pull the stencil off and get a great reveal. I also have a hard time doing a voiceover when it's not present tense, so I apologize. I am talking in past tense as I had already created this piece before I did the voiceover. So they're just wiping a little bit of that extra paste off where I didn't want it. And I went ahead and dried that all with my heat tool, made sure that was nice and crispy dry. The flexible modeling paste from Liquitex dries hard and it dries fast, so it's really nice. And here I kind of fussed around with adding some more brickwork around in different areas on the piece. I did struggle some with the stencil moving and the texture paste getting under it, but I do kind of skip through that, and I'm just showing you a couple of places where that happened, here being one of them. So I did actually wipe it completely off there to start over. I also, looks like I didn't have my camera on when I stenciled in with the modeling paste those little lamp posts. I did one on the left and one on the right hand side of the door. So those turned out really, really interesting in the final piece. I was really pleased with that look. I'm not a very patient crafter, and so I should have waited for this to dry, and I didn't. So I did kind of mess up my lamp post there, the one that's right above that stencil, but it worked out just fine. It's mixed media. It's meant to be imperfect and messy, and at least in my opinion. So I didn't want the brickwork everywhere, but I did want it to kind of be a continuation of what we were seeing on the door. So that is now also dry. And we're going to now, I was trying to think about how I was going to handle that area underneath the door, because originally when I started this, that was supposed to be a door. As you can see in the final pictures, and as well as the thumbnail, it actually looks more like a window, and it turned out beautiful, and I did not plan that. This is a Ranger, what's it called? Grit paste. And it's the first time I've used it, and I absolutely adore it. Absolutely adore it. So I'm just applying it everywhere on the bottom section, which ended up being okay. Again, I didn't really plan that out, and I really was struggling with this project in terms of getting kind of the effect that I had in my mind when I started. But again, in the end, it just turned out just far beyond my wildest imagination. So I'm super happy with it. So I'm also applying it here and there around the piece, kind of overlapping a little bit of that brickwork, which creates a lot of interesting texture and cohesiveness for the entire project. So that's what I'm doing here, is just kind of adding it here and there, just kind of scraping it with my palette knife. I do go over some of the brickwork as well. And then originally I was thinking that I wanted to have some pinkish red in this piece. That didn't really end up being the end product, as you can probably tell in the thumbnail and the still photos, but I was trying it here. So I got out my Liquitex Heavy Body Quinacridone Rose, I believe that was. But it'll all be linked in the video description or over on my blog. So just adding a little bit of water to that paint just to make it a little bit thinner, and just applying that there again in the door. It was very transparent, which is actually quite pretty, but you'll see as I move through this, I try several things with this doorway, and it ended up being perfect. And I'll tell you as I do the voiceover where I got the aha moment, where I knew that the piece was going to be exactly what I wanted it to be and was going to be perfect, kind of the moment when it all came together. This is not that moment, so it was definitely a struggle. I don't do a lot of mixed media, so I really struggled with putting the composition together. But I also enjoyed getting dirty again, which I've been working a lot with paper crafts and haven't been doing as much with the wet media, and I really enjoyed that. So here I was just trying to add a little bit of raw umber fluid acrylic to that door, and I did actually like the color because it was kind of a muted out color, but as you'll see, we didn't keep that either. So I'm going to go ahead and do a glaze with my Golden Glazing medium and my raw umber fluid acrylic from Golden. And I'm just going to cover the entire surface because I really want to dull down that white. I'm not a big fan of the white with these texture mediums, and so I do push it all back with a glaze here. So I'll just let you watch this part. I will tell you that I did not wait long enough for my grit paste to dry, and you'll see as we move through the project that that did create a problem in a number of areas, and I will definitely do that different in the future. As I mentioned, I'm not a very patient crafter when it comes to kind of moving through a project. I just want things to just continue to flow and move. And what that means is that sometimes I don't let things dry enough, and I end up creating a bigger problem for myself, which happened here. I'm going to go ahead and use my baby wipes and wipe that back. And as you can see right there, you can already see how it's pushed that back. It's kind of muted the colors out. It's changed the rock to be kind of a beigeish color. And I really like that. There where you see the really white in the bottom section is where that grit paste was not dry. So that was my bad on me, because that created me a lot of problems. Not so much at the bottom. I was able to rectify that pretty quickly, but on the top edge that's off screen right now, it really was not good. So so now I'm going to come in, I believe, with the a little bit more of the raw umber, using mostly the paint rather than the glaze part, and just applying some of that here and there. I do use my finger to skip it across the stones here in a moment, just to kind of create some darker passages within those shapes. So I love how the rocks turned out. I hope that you guys will take a minute to look at the close-up video, the close-up photos, because every color that I used in this project shows up in the stones, and it's just really, really rich and beautiful. And again, not what I was intending, but I absolutely fell in love with it as it was happening. So again, we're not at that place right now. I'm just applying some more of that raw umber. I believe the next thing I do is to bring in some dark gray from Americana Paints, Deco Art Americana premium paints, and try to bring in some gray into those rocks, which again was a good feature because you can see it in the final photos. It was just one more layer, even though I did end up doing many things on top of it. It showed up and it was beautiful. I believe that my thought process here was I really wanted that area to stand out from the door and the doorway and some of the other stones, even though, as you can see, I did add a little bit of the gray up here and there around the other parts as well. But I wanted, I guess what I was thinking was that it would distinguish it. It really didn't, because I tend to go kind of all over with every color that I do. Don't have a lot of control, self-control there. I did enroll in Sean Petit's Insider group. I can't remember what the official name of it is. And I plan to really dive in for the month of August. I signed up late in July, so I really didn't get a chance to do much in the month of July. But I'm hoping to pick up some tips and tricks that will help me move through these processes a little bit better, with a little bit more of a cohesive process for you guys to watch, as well as adding to my toolbox of things that I can try. So here's where I got the novel idea that I would go ahead and add the gray, the dark gray, to the door, thinking that I would change that color out. And I did like the gray better than I did that pinky red, but as you'll see again, I don't keep it. So it's an ever evolving doorway here. And I'm just dabbing it with my towel just a little bit, just to kind of soften that color a little bit. And I do like that it kind of gave this, what's the look? Modeled look in that doorway. I'm just showing you what the rocks and stuff look like, just kind of close up. And they get even more beautiful. And if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you know that the texture is my passion. And so, and I tend to go overboard and lose other things in that process, but I definitely do love my texture. So, and I really wanted to have some gold in this. And so I thought I would try with my Liquitex ink to drip that gold down the substrate here. It was really thick and it didn't move very well. And you'll see how I work through that as I go. I'm glad that I added it because you can see it in the final piece, but it was not really what I was going after. It didn't turn out the way that I had planned, but that again is often the case, which is okay. I'm a firm believer that you should be enjoying your art, creating the process, the end result, to the max. Like if it's stealing your joy and you're all caught up in rules and strategy and all this stuff, then you might be not having as much fun as you could be having. And so I've really had to let go of my own expectations about how the process goes and what it ends up looking like for you guys when I share it on YouTube. I just share what I'm creating because it brings me joy to share it. It brings me joy to create it. So, you know, if you enjoy it, I'm glad. If you don't, then you might want to find another YouTuber to follow. But this is how I do it. And I'm growing in that process and really enjoying it. So just dabbing up a little bit of that, just remnants of color. I did dry it with my heat tool, as you saw there a moment ago. It's nice and dry now. And I did want to use this quinacridone rose. Originally, that was one of the fundamental colors that I wanted to have. It didn't end up being the predominant color at all in the piece. As you can tell, it ended up being very teal and brown, which are my go-to colors. So that's not surprising at all. But I did try to add it here to the door. And at this point, I was still thinking of this as a door, and I loved that. And then when I was done with the project and I'm looking at it now, I'm thinking, wow, that would have been a beautiful doorway too for her to be looking out like it was through a window, as it turned out in the end. But just dabbing a little bit of that pink or that rose everywhere. Not everywhere else, elsewhere on the piece. And as you can see on the very top, area there, the white parts is where that paste is not dry. And that's the area that caused me grief from pretty much beginning to end of this project. So it ends up working out just fine in the end, but it was difficult. And here I love the pink wasn't the color I ended up sticking with, but you can see the pink in the final project in the rocks, the bricks there, and it's just absolutely stunning, as well as the gold. So just adding a little bit of that yellow. This is golden fluid acrylic in yellow medium, I believe. Just kind of wanting to brighten up some part of this because I always go darker than I want to on my projects. And even though it did turn out darker than I intended, it was much lighter in that area and stayed lighter. So, and there we've created a little bit more issue up at the top. And so I'm using my heat tool to dry that a little bit more and see if I can salvage that. I just really should have waited for that grit paste to dry completely. Should have walked away and ate some lunch or something, but I didn't. So now that is dry again. And so now we're going to go in with the next color for the door, which is my golden fluid acrylic in teal, one of my absolute favorite colors. This and the cobalt turquoise are two of my all-time favorites, especially when they're coupled with a brown, a deep brown, like raw umber. They're absolutely gorgeous. But this is almost the point, not quite the point, where I started feeling like I knew what was happening with the piece and I was pleased with it. Bringing in this teal on the door is when I started thinking about how the piece seemed to be coming together as I had kind of lost control of it a long time ago, just being completely transparent with you. But I'm not a quitter, and so I didn't give up, and I just kept pushing through, knowing that doing a voiceover and explaining the process to you is going to be difficult with all of this change and all of these corrections. But in the end, it was worth the struggle. I can tell you that. It's up there with one of my favorite pieces I've ever created. So I'm pretty cool with that. So just coming in with that teal on the rocks, just to add a little bit more color and you know, rocks don't generally have teal in them, but on this piece, it was the clincher. I mean, it just totally transformed this whole piece, as you'll be able to see in the end. I will also, just before I forget, I will be giving away this piece to someone who leaves a comment either on the YouTube video or over on my blog. I would love to gift this to someone if it speaks to you. When you get all the way through the video and you see all the photos, I'd be happy to send it to you free of charge. I no longer sell my art. I'm creating purely for the joy of creating. And so I would really love to be able to do that. I've done that with a couple of other pieces, and it's just a wonderful thing to be able to do. So if you're interested, please just leave a comment either here on the YouTube video or over on my blog about what you thought of the piece and what is it about it that speaks to you? Why do you like it? That would be really awesome. Just to kind of get a conversation going would be beautiful. And just again, continuing to add that teal just until I'm satisfied. I do end up coming in on the bottom section there a little bit later with the teal as well, as you'll see. Coming in again with the raw umber, just still really not liking that area. Apparently dipped my finger in the teal there instead of the brown, and so I wiped that up really quickly. And here I'm trying with a circular motion to kind of create the idea of kind of boulders or something, but it really wasn't working very well there in the lower section under that door that became a window. So, and then bringing that up again, just kind of, you know, doing the dance between the colors until I feel satisfied with what's happening in total on the piece. And so that's just the process. I don't know what the process is like for you. I would love to have some feedback about how you guys move through a piece when you're constructing it, you're putting it together, and it doesn't go the way that you had in your mind, and how do you resolve that? I would love to hear how you manage that, how you work through that, how you talk to yourself about that. I don't always talk to myself very nicely when things don't go as planned. So something I'm working on, but definitely not very good at it. It's always hard to translate what you have in your mind down to, you know, a surface, whether that's a journal or, you know, a piece like this. It's just really challenging to make that, you know, kind of that translation from, you know, in your mind to a three-dimensional item like this. Just cleaning up a little bit. I'm going to show you a close-up. And this is just a taste of what the texture and the rocks looked like in the end. It's just phenomenal. So, and here I think is where we kind of got over the hump of that grit paste really continuing to be reactivated and softened. And so I don't believe we had any trouble after this, but I guess we'll find out. I can't quite remember. So again, coming in with the gray, trying to fix this bottom section because I'm thinking about it like it's a pathway or it's a sidewalk, and it just obviously was not looking at all like a sidewalk. So here's the circular motions I was talking about from that other clip, where I'm trying to create kind of the illusion of rocks or boulders there, but it wasn't working. So, yeah, what do you do? So here is our focal point. Obviously the door, which it was originally a door, and this girl, this silhouette of this girl was in my first imaginings of this piece. And so this part turned out exactly like I had envisioned it. Actually better than I envisioned it. But I had a hard time not quitting. There was many points where I was like, I'm just done with this. This will just be a recycled piece of, you know, a wood panel, and I'm just going to go do something else. So, and here's where I was trying to evaluate where I wanted to put my awakening word, because I forgot about it actually and didn't preserve a place for it. And so in the end, again, it wasn't optimal, but it worked out just fine. And it worked out just as it was supposed to work out. And so I went ahead and stenciled it on with my Ranger Black Archival ink here in that area. I do connect those letters a little bit later, and I do some accentuating with some black lines around that word to make it pop out. I felt like I really needed to bring in some starker, kind of a darker black. So I'm using this, I think this is a Paris Element stencil, and just using this beautiful part of the stencil to create some interest around the piece again, just to kind of bring out that dark black. And at this point, I thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool if that kind of looked like vines coming through over that door? And this is the point where I started thinking about, this isn't a door, this is a window. And it was just amazing. Oh no, I thought I had solved that grit paste issue. I must have touched it with the stencil and it pulled it up again. So it does get resolved eventually, I promise. I had some of that grit paste got on the back of the stencil. So, and that's just a mess. It's just completely softened that whole area. But it does work out in the end. It's going to come in with some raw umber, which tended to cover it fairly well. And I think this might have been the part where it was actually resolved finally. But I guess you and I will find out together. My memory isn't great, so I just created this the day before I'm doing the voiceover, and it was hard for me to remember all the pieces of the process that I was doing. So here, just deciding I want a little bit more of that stencil design here in the bottom right corner of the window, as it turned out. So, and then this is where I decided, hey, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and make this a wall. And this is when it started to really look like a door, and then this was like the front wall of the building where this window was. And this is where it really started to feel more cohesive, and it made a lot more sense to me than it had up to this point. So just drawing that really quick with my heat tool. And then I wanted something to kind of be a secondary focal point here. And I really wanted the butterflies to be a part of this piece. And so I used the largest butterfly in this stencil and used my black archival ink again to stencil on that butterfly. And it was epic. Turned out really beautiful in the end. I do fuss a lot with it, but in the end, it was perfect. And then I decided I was going to do a little bit of that script from the dictionary page stencil on either side of that butterfly, just to create some interest in the background there. That might not have been necessary, it might have been a little bit overkill, but it's what I chose to do, so you got to be good with it. So here, I've used this gold iridescent fine fluid acrylic in a couple of my most recent mixed media projects, and I absolutely love it. I tried to be a little bit more sparing on this one because I think I did a little bit too much on the others, but this took it over the top, in my opinion, for the meaning of the piece, for the depth that I was feeling of the story and the inspiration behind the sentiment or the word awakening and what that means to me in relation to this piece. And again, you'll be able to read about that over on my blog if you're curious about what the inspiration was here. You can check that out. Just adding it here and there. Again, trying to not be too heavy-handed because I didn't want to overdo it. But, and then as I was editing out the clips that I didn't want to include in the voiceover portion, you're going to see here in a moment that I don't finish this project on screen. I thought that I had the camera going, but I must have turned it off. But I'll talk to you about it at the end so that you can kind of see what I ended up doing in the end, which you could probably tell by looking at the photos, but I will talk to you about that. Sorry, that is my phone ringing and I cannot turn it off. So we're just going to have to be okay with it. I cannot turn the ringer off. So my apologies for that interruption. I don't want to stop the voiceover. So just giving that a good dry again, finished putting on all that gold. And just talking a little bit as this was a real-time video, so I was talking a lot with my hands. But after I was done, after apparently the camera turned off, I came in with my charcoal pencil. I went around all the rocks, the bricks, the inside of the door. I used a black permanent marker to highlight those lamp posts and to put some lines and stuff around that word awakening. So I hope that you liked the pictures. I hope that you enjoyed the video, even though it was really choppy and kind of a mess, but I hope that you enjoyed. If you liked the video, I hope that you give it a thumbs up and like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell if you want to see what I'm creating. I'd love to see ya. Thank you guys so much for watching and for putting up with me and my sometimes really jumbled process. So I hope that you are well and take care, my friends. Bye-bye.